Elizabeth, welcome to Radio Wolf. Great to talk again about One World Bearing Witness. You wanna share what you are doing this year in One World Bearing Witness?
Thanks, Thomas. It's great to be here and to speak about this annual event that you and I both host. That is a global ritual, and this year we have invited people who are truly sitting in some of the troubles of the world and who are really catalyzing these troubles, who are working to create change. And we've invited them to share with us their prayers for the world, their prayers for the particular situation that they are working with, whether it's climate change or democracy or even the missing and murdered Native American girls in Canada, the Balkans, the historical, the intergenerational trauma in the Balkans, these things that are deep within the fabric of our social global world, these fractures, these fragments, these places of division. And we're asking the people who engage with these to share what their hope is, what their intention is, what their prayer is for the world to come.
You're calling this a global ritual, and you developed this how many years ago now?
7
years ago. And this is something that we do together on the internet, on Zoom, with people around the globe. And a global ritual sounds something new. And how could one imagine how a global ritual is possible? What is that, a global ritual?
Well, I mean, what is a ritual? A ritual is an intentional, ceremonial offering to that which is beyond us, whether that is whatever you call that, the mystery of life, Great Spirit, God, whatever it is that one holds most sacred, life itself. That it is a deliberate ceremonial offering from the deepest part of oneself. And so a global ritual is something that we haven't had really much of before, because we've done ritual within our particular context, within our religion. We, First Holy Communion in the Catholic Church, or different rituals in I would say the Japanese tea ritual, that we have different experiences of ritual in different contexts. But we're now living in a world where our contexts are rubbing up against each other, where we are not simply aware of our own world and our own cultural and religious context, but we're a whole. We're part of a whole, and a global ritual is trying to bring together the practices, the approaches, the calling to that which is beyond, that come from different places on the earth, and that are celebrated in different ways. Last year, for example, we had an Iboga practitioner, or Iboga practitioner, who said you can't make change without being happy. And she and her people did a very exuberant dance That's a ritual for healing, transforming, changing that which is, to make it more whole, more holy, more wholesome.
I find the whole concept of ritual something very fascinating, because honestly, a long time in my life, I had a very skeptical, or even more than skeptical, relationship to rituals. And I think that's part of our generation, that we kind of broke away, liberated us from the traditional rituals of our cultural backgrounds, maybe Christian, Catholic in my way, or whatever. And we kind of developed an anti-ritualistic approach where we just meet as adult human beings. And in the recent years, we found that, interesting enough, the younger generation starts to have a new interest in rituals. And I was puzzled by that. Why all of a sudden, what is this about? What is ritual about? So I started to think more again what ritual is about. And I think you touched on it in a profound way already, because ritual is something that you don't talk about. It's something that you do, even if you talk. And you create something by doing certain things that opens up a certain space of meaningfulness. You also could call it sacredness, or whatever words one chooses, but it is something that is opening a space and it's closing a space, and by relating to this space, something is transmitted, which I find very interesting, because it's also against our usual cognitive way of how we do things. It's more how we are with each other, how we are with nature, how we are with earth, how we are with the sacred. And to do this together with the new technological possibilities, with people that are distributed around this globe and connected via something like Zoom, I had in the meantime quite some profound experiences that I would call ritual experiences, by stepping into something, acknowledging something, honoring something that I experience as a shared meaningfulness that made a difference in my life. And I think it makes a difference how we are together on this globe.
Right. I think we don't usually walk through life with an awareness of the whole of which we're part. That's part of our individualism. It's also a part of the history of human consciousness, that we don't hold that awareness. We don't have that capacity yet. But a ritual like this, where people from around this globe who have very different ways of creating access to that which is, as you called it, most meaningful or sacred, or that probably covers it. That one comes away with a sense of being part of something that is much larger than oneself, and that in terms of culturally, humanly, but also in terms of it taps into the beyond that that every culture has some story about, that which is beyond, that which is bigger than, that which holds us. So one comes away from an experience like this global ritual with a much expanded sense of connectedness to the human beings and their traditions, of seeking meaningfulness and sacredness, and discovering it in different ways, and also to that which is meaningful and sacred itself. And I find both of those to be very important for us at this time. And as you said, the generations behind us are recognizing more and more that our relationship to that which is greater than ourselves just simply the biosphere, if you want to even make it that concrete, is, or whatever one calls it, or however one recognizes it, that something is missing in human life if we are missing ways of connecting to that.
This year, the way you designed this global ritual, One World Bearing Witness, which we do for 24 hours on the computers together on Zoom with people from all different continents, you focused on something that is even more peculiar, or you focused on prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And even more than ritual, or maybe it's the same. Prayer feels a little fallen out of time, at least for many of us. It's something that I know, or we know, traditional cultures do, but even modern spiritual people, they meditate. We meditate, or we have consciousness practices. Praying, there's a certain subset of people who does that, but it's kind of definitely doesn't have the same popularity like meditating to pray, because who do you pray to? Then you immediately need a Tao. So or are we all of a sudden in a theistic context where we pray to the Catholic God again, or to Allah, or to the spirits? So this whole concept of praying, there's a lot of people who feel funny about it. Why praying?
Well, I think it is a practice that cuts across traditions. I mean, you have praying in the sense that you're speaking about it primarily, which is in the Christian church, or in one of the great book religions, that there are forms of prayer, and you pray, and often we have become very disconnected from the meaning of the words that we're praying, or in those contexts, or people like us are not beholden to the Christian God in the same way that people were hundreds of years ago, and that some people still practice. But it's also, I think this came from recognizing that indigenous cultures speak of prayer also.
Mm-hmm.
And they speak of prayer as something that one holds, that one has a prayer in one's life, or maybe a sequence of prayers. That there are things in life that one is has an intention towards. Mm-hmm. And I would also relate there's all kinds of New Age practices, and also psychologically successful and robust practices around intention. I wake up in the morning and I set my intention for the day. That doesn't seem to be, that's not theistic, but that's a prayer. Mm-hmm. That's that aligning my intention with something that is my desire for the future. And by that, often prayer has also been diminished by simple petitionary prayer, like, to make fun of it. Dear God, will you give me a new car? That kind of praying for things, or praying for certain kinds of outcomes. I mean, we all do that, actually, in a certain way, but in a bigger way, to go deeply into what is one's purpose for being here, and to hone one's capacity to perceive one's unique purpose, and to place one's intention behind that. That's a prayer. Mm-hmm. That's the prayer that one brings into life. And I would say, that in a certain way, whether we're conscious of it or not, each of us is living a prayer. There is something expressed by our very existence that is an intention for the future, is an intention for life. And it may be something that is as close as one's own health or the health of one's loved ones, or it could be something more like the health of the planet, or for peace, or for healing trauma, or for celebrating life, to be a walking celebration of life. That's a powerful prayer.
It's interesting that you're emphasizing the aspect of intention, because I would have gone a different way when I think or contemplate meditation. I can see that aspect, but what comes to me first is the expression of relationship. To pray is an expression of relationship to something in a respectful or even loving way, and where if you have a relationship to the divine, let's say, and you relate to the divine, and it doesn't even have to come in the language of thou, it's just relating to the divine, you open up to something that's beyond my separate self-sense, and you honor the embeddedness or the relatedness, and just being in this relationship and honoring this relationship changes something in the way I am in the world. And maybe that's where your intention comes in, because it also expresses my intention, how I want to be in the world, or my intentions for the world, or my intentions for someone, something, for others. But what I find powerful in this posture of prayer is my conscious being related to something that is worth to be related to, that's more than my mundane relationship to the tasks I have to do or whatever. It's my related to something. Divine is a good word for that, and it changes the way I show up in life if I cultivate this relationship. Maybe that's a good point of it, that prayer is also the cultivation of relationship.
I guess I wonder about then the need for a thou. That then one is in relationship to something or someone, and if in that case it often, then what is one praying to? Is it an entity? Is it you get back into very theistic ways of thinking or framing prayer. And I think that the divine is a good start, but I would even say it's that which is bigger than us, that which is unknown to us, that which is ungraspable to life itself. And I think that there's a lot of prayer these days that is happening to life, or to the life force that is bigger than ourselves, rather than to a divine being or a divine sense of divinity per se. And I think with intention, it does beg the question: who are you? Or to what are you intending? Or what is it that hears your intention, or that assists you in your attention? But I think that the act of intending, and one can go very deeply into that, the act of holding an intention and giving oneself over to something larger in that, is a is a way of engaging with prayer that doesn't get into the difficulties of theism.
Mm. Maybe the way you put it also to the relationship to something bigger than myself is an interesting point in this, because it is this opening to something bigger than me, and also deeply meaningful, being embedded in something deeply meaningful, and that can be seen in all different kind of ways of looking at it, in different metaphysics or in different religious belief or spiritual beliefs, or modernist scientific understanding of reality. But it is this opening as a practice that I find powerful to do this together. Because usually the way how we walk through the world, we are kind of open to our tasks, open to what we want to achieve. There's this kind of instrumental relationship that's very often dominating our sense of reality and us and the relationship to reality. And in this posture, we acknowledge something bigger than that, more profound than that. And doing this prayer or being in this posture, in this opening, is a practice of opening up.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it has an impact how we see the world and how we show up in the world.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned instrumentalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
That and which is what I would say is part of the issue with petitionary prayer. You know, I'm doing this in order to get something. But in many ways, prayer is asking to become an instrument.
Mm.
You know, can I become an instrument for this that I perceive as my purpose in relationship to this, where we are on earth at this moment in time? Can I be helped? Can I be opened more deeply to be able to give myself more fully to that which I feel is, or I see as my reason, my most meaningful reason for being alive?
Mm-hmm.
And in this day and age, those reasons are often related to things that are quite that have a lot of division and suffering attached to them. But the intention is to bring wholeness and joy, to heal, to transform.
That shows me also the word intention in a different light than I heard you before, because the way I hear this now is that it is my intention to open up to this other, to open up to this wholeness that you are talking about, and even acknowledging that quite often the way we walk through life, we are not that open. Quite often what we're cultivating and what our culture is cultivating, and we with the culture, is this instrumental relationship where we are ends to our own ends, or even just ends to basically an optimizing a system of exchange that we have created with economy and culture and politics. But there is not this opening to this wholeness, aliveness, profundness that we can meet in. And in that sense, to also touch another aspect of what One World Bearing Witness is about, it is a form of activism. And it is a form of activism by leaning into this together. That's maybe a big thing to say, but I do believe it. Leaning in this together, we change us in our culture. It is in itself an active deed that really creates an impulse that has the power to change how we dive into culture and how we co-create culture. In that form, it's a form of activism.
Mm-hmm. I see this very much as a form of, if you want to call it, subtle activism, which is the title of David Nichols' book, which documents how prayer and these kinds of ritual engagements among groups of people create a shift in the environment in terms of less violence, less criminality, and all kinds of things. His book on subtle activism, or you can call it sacred activism, which is a word that we're more comfortable with, in terms of that it's relating to that which is most precious, most meaningful, and almost unexpressibly, I guess, unexpressibly meaningful. That it touches us, that it is that which touches us deeply. And I think I've got a little friend here that is flying around my face, and I think that this activism, I think particularly when we look at the global situation and we look at the people that we're bringing together, that this global ritual sits at the nexus of change-making, activism, and wholeness. It's a way of bringing wholeness and healing to things that are in the way of our being able to live together on this planet in a way that is healthy and wholesome. And I think that the point of this activism is to create space in human consciousness for us to be together in a different way, that is coming from that wholeness, that is rooted in that preciousness of life, and which is the action. Because if you look at most of the problems that we're facing on this planet, from the climate to to prejudice or racism, they're problems that exist in our souls and with our will. They're not problems that are about how do we technically solve the issue of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's not about that. We know how to fix it, but we just aren't doing it. And a global ritual like this tries to create a space in consciousness where these things can be seen and held in wholeness. And in that, there's something that shifts. That is how healing happens. And we're trying to take a tiny healing step in holding these different examples of transformation and the potential of transformation and the pain that it is rooted in, but more deeply rooted in wholeness. We're trying to bring that together to create this space in human consciousness for something transformative to happen. It's obviously it's a tiny step we're going to be taking, but it's a step.
Part of why I'm every single time again excited about doing this One World Bearing Witness, and we do other global rituals in that way also, is because I see this as an experiment, how we can come together on a global scale in an open society, doing something or redoing something that we as humanity did for since our ancestors did it from the beginning in the indigenous shamanic cultures, we did it in the traditional cultures of the religions of the Axle ages. We did it in different forms. We came together in rituals to purify ourselves, to heal ourselves, and to relate to whatever we experienced as being the sacred domain. And we created all these forms of rituals in all different ways, all over the world, in all different forms. But we always did that. And our technological modernistic time kind of eradicated that. We don't do this anymore. And it seems to be something that we are really suffering from, that we as a culture have not found ways how we can do this together. And it's difficult. Also in a pluralistic, open society, how can we do this in a form that also connects us and doesn't divide us? So this is also an experiment, how we can do rituals in a form where we honor our diversity, where we also honor people from different backgrounds, secular backgrounds, indigenous backgrounds, traditional backgrounds, but find ways how we can open up this space that you're talking about. And we're experimenting with this, like others are experimenting with this, but I really think establishing new forms of global rituals is something that our culture needs.
I think so too. I think so too. And I was very deeply touched by the resonance that doing a meditation and prayer ritual, to include prayer and invite people to share their deepest prayer for that which they're working on in change making. What resonance was there for that? And I think that has to do with what you're saying, that there's a need in us to connect with this space of that which is larger than us, this mystery, this that brought us here, that has created us, that our relationship to that wholeness of which we're a part. People are excited about bringing their prayer into that space. Mm-hmm. And that's our job as hosts and everyone who participates. All of our job is to create a space to hold these prayers. And so we have Esther Stanford Zose offering prayers for planetary repair, planet repair. Her work is on decolonial reparations. The prayer is for planet repair. We have Gail Bradbrook, the co-founder of XR, Extinction Rebellion, praying for humanity to weave together into its wholeness. And she herself is a radical climate activist. So there, the work and the dream, the work and the vision, the work and the intention are what we're looking to hold in this space from all different places in the world, in order to create a container for these prayers to be heard and held and made possible.
So the people that you invite to join, this probably 100, maybe 1,000 people, are global, in a global context, to join us here. What do you want them to join with? How do you want them to show up? What do you want them to engage with?
Well, I think that this is a space that is co-created. This space that we're asking people to co-create a depth, which is why we include silent meditation, so that there is in silence, that there is this a space created that goes in that goes between and beyond and through us. And also to bring your own prayer, and to ask yourself, what is the prayer I am living? What is the intention that I have in my life for change or transformation or healing or wholeness? What is that? What is it that motivates me most deeply? And it's to bring that. We will have a center, a ritual in the center of these 24 hours that we're going to be hosting for a communal prayer where people can speak their prayers if they desire. So you bring your prayer and you create the space in your own heart to open to the prayers of others for wholeness and transformation and celebrating life on this planet.
When you said to prepare the space in your heart, do you also want people to prepare this space in the physical environment?
Yes, that's always a good idea. That to and if you sign up for the event, we will send you a guide and that speaks to things like this, how to prepare your environment. Many of us have our own personal altars, or meditation spaces, or practice spaces, yoga practice spaces in our where we live. But to make a nice, clean space that means something to you about that which is the mystery, that which is sacred, that which is most meaningful, and in that space, create create a space that allows you to relax, and to open up to that which is most meaningful.
Because then we are again back in this ritualistic approach. The way we prepare us, the way we create also physical space means something. And although postmodern people tend to be kind of skeptical about that, in many ways we do that all the time anyway. Because when you invite people for a party or for dinner, you usually you do take care of the space. You do right. Create your dinner environment, your party environment. You maybe clean up more than usually. If you look carefully, this is a ritualistic approach, because you also could say you just basically, this is how I live, please come. But you make a special effort in order to honor a relationship with the people that you're inviting.
Mm-hmm.
And that I mean, you can do that because you don't want to be disregarded as being careless. But you also maybe want to do that because you really want to do that, not because you want to seem in a certain way. And when we go with the second, that you really basically want to create a space for your friends and people that you love, I think there is an understanding of what ritualistic approach, that there is a space, it's a party, a dinner. You start it somehow, it has a certain sequence, it has a certain ending, it has a certain flair that is this space. There is a before the party and after the party, and this party space. There is an understanding of that rituals mean something for us as humans, and that sacred rituals are rituals where in one way or the other we are inviting the sacred dimension of reality, or even inviting our capacity to be open to that. And in that, to do this and to do this together, again, I find this a form of sacred activism.
Yeah, and to be open to the sacredness of life, to be align oneself with that which is to invite in, to create a space that invites, is saying it is inviting in one's deepest relationship to life, or to the mystery that life is fundamentally, and to honor that. I mean, as you're saying, we do that in very what secular contexts. We do make our homes more beautiful, or what our spaces more beautiful when we have guests, and here you're inviting in the ultimate guest, that which is the life force, that which is that gives us all life. And from that space we meet online for as long as you are inspired. The event goes for 24 hours, but there's no need to stay for the entire time, although that is a fantastic experience. We do it every year. And choose what you would like to participate in, and be there for it.
So if people do want to participate, it's maybe also good to say when this will happen, and maybe also how people can join, how they can sign up.
Sure. So this is the first weekend in December, which is December 3rd and 4th. It begins on the 3rd and goes for 24 hours and ends on the 4th. In Central Europe, it starts at 3 o'clock Central Europe time. In the East Coast of the US, it starts at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, December 3rd. And if you want to sign up, you go to evolve-world.org/OWBW, One World Bearing Witness. And that's what we're hoping to create. And we would love to have all of your listeners join us in creating one world, bearing witness to these prayers, and to all of our prayers for wholeness, healing, and life.
Elizabeth, thank you.
Thanks, Thomas.
And I hope to see you all there in One World Bearing Witness. Thank you, everyone.